What's up, everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today... Oh god, get it off! Get it off! Ah!
Jenkins! Oh, this is local!
And today, we're taking a look at Awakening the Nightmare DLC expansion for Halo Wars 2. So, this DLC is a bit strange because it isn't included with the Season's Pass, which I can understand, seeing as how it's quite a massive expansion. It probably took a lot of money to make. At the same time, people are no doubt upset that the extra 20 or 30 bucks they spent on the Ultimate Edition or Season's Pass won't cover this. In any case, you're probably wondering what the hype is about. Well, the motherfucking Flood have returned. For the first time in 8 years, we see them in a new Halo game, and no doubt, that's got a lot of people hyped up. So if you enjoy Halo's lore and the Flood in general, you'll be quite happy to see them again. And what I really enjoyed is the new Codex Phoenix logs that were added to this. Seeing as the Flood are the entire driving force behind Halo and its story overall, I always found them to be the most interesting. Thus, being able to read up on them in-game was a really nice touch. Now, what's funny about Awakening the Nightmare is my buddy Reykjavik posted a video about how DLC used to be handled and how it's handled now. It's a short video, I suggest watching it, link in the description. But he makes the very accurate observation that DLC in the past would be something that expanded upon the game, bringing new opportunities for gameplay, story, customization, etc. But compared to now, DLC has become something that maintains a game, bringing more of the same. In recent years, Ray says, expansions have become extensions. And I find that so funny because Awakening the Nightmare is exactly the type of DLC and expansion we used to get. You know, the type that are actually worthy of being called an expansion.
We're not worthy!
While I was somewhat disappointed we didn't get a Banished campaign or get to see their point of view as much in the original game, this is pretty much what I wanted. Just to see their side of things, bring more characterization to the Banished, the Brutes, Atriox, and this DLC certainly does that, to a degree. I'll talk more about the overall story later, but it was nice to see the Brutes, these two new guys, Pavium and Voridis, brothers, along with other nameless captains, you know, just bantering back and forth.
This way, whelps. There's weapons to be salvaged from High Charity, and Voridis commands us to return to base for new orders.
Did you say High Charity, the Covenant capital place? I heard it was haunted. Scary monsters everywhere. Whoa, man! Back off the gas!
My brother was watching me play it, and during the first mission he was like, damn, those brutes are pretty cool. Haven't seen anything like this since Halo 2. And that kind of summed my thoughts up perfectly. To see the Covenant or Banished side of things is something we haven't seen in a long time, and this was quite refreshing. Granted, the characters aren't as deep or fleshed out as I'd like, but it's fun nonetheless. The new campaign itself consists of 5 missions, each of them offering new gameplay opportunities. They're all very fun. One mission you'll be holding down different sections to stem the Sentinel forces while simultaneously guarding a Scarab. Another mission you'll be fighting off the Flood and gathering power crystals at the same time. The 4th level had these awesome sections where you had to navigate past lasers and move stealthily through so as to avoid the bulk of Flood forces.
We are more agile than those shuffling monstrosities. I'll send one of my squad through to deactivate them from the other side. You surprised me, Voridis. I thought you would want to test your mighty reflexes against the beams. Moving ha! Challenge accepted, brother.
These might be small little details, but it reinforces that feeling of being something new, something that adds on to the gameplay, rather than giving us another hold these points for X amount of time mission. And my personal favorite is the 2nd level, Fighting Retreat, where you gotta hold off waves of Flood and every few minutes you fall back to a more fortified position. Each time you fall back, the waves get harder to hold off. You gotta make use of building barricades, turrets, spreading your units out to cover all routes, garrisoning your troops. It's so much damn fun. There's a lot of twists and turns that pop up throughout each mission, which keeps you on your toes and forces you to think quickly in order to overcome these new challenges. As far as gameplay goes, this is the bee's knees, baby. They really did come up with some creative new levels, and for gameplay alone, it's worth 20 bucks easily. I was having so much fun playing through the campaign on Heroic. Of course, this DLC adds new maps, units, heroes, and leader abilities, and these all mix things up for Halo Wars 2 as a whole. Overall, the campaign is a blast, and if you liked Halo Wars 2, you're gonna love this. This expansion also adds some fresh achievements, so if you're into that, you'll have a lot of goals to achieve. Now, adding the Flood back as an enemy also forces you to adopt new tactics, because it's a new faction. You can't let your infantry get too close to the Flood or else they'll be turned against you, so positioning your troops against the Flood is a key to success. 343 gave them a unit called Spawners, which will, of course, spawn in enemies. But the catch is they counter whatever units of yours are nearby, meaning you gotta prioritize them or face heavy losses. They even got their own super unit, which will absolutely murder your forces if you aren't careful. This fourth mission has you dance around 3 platforms doing damage and avoiding the big flood forms. It's really hectic and challenging. So fighting the Flood is great, the missions are designed well, and the new units, leaders, and powers are all fun to use. Blur cutscenes, of course, are buttery as balls. They're butterballs, except more buttery. And it was really kick-ass to watch the reveal of the Flood and how the brutes fought against them. These action scenes are fucking amazing. Through these cutscenes, we also gain a better sense of how equipped the Banished are. They're brutes, but with a lot more high-tech gadgets and armor this time around, almost matching what Spartans wear. These cinematics are simply incredible. Also with this DLC came Terminus Firefight, and something I mentioned in my original Halo Wars 2 review.
There are no leaderboards, no way to compare with your friends or other people who has the best score, not even for the campaign missions. It absolutely boggled my mind when I, Spiteful, Sean from Forge Labs, and I got to round 47 in Blitz Firefight, thinking we'd be the top people on the leaderboards when the game came out, only to realize they didn't exist.
Leaderboards, yes, thank you. Now people can brag about how far they've gotten, you can see who's at the top, how well they've done. It's just a great community feature, and I'm glad that got added in here. Aside from that, Terminus Firefight is fun as hell. It's like that fighting retreat mission I talked about, except this time 3 players are defending a Terminus building in the middle. You gotta build forces and defend. It plays very much like a match in Halo Wars 2, in the sense that you have access to every type of unit that you normally do, but your objectives are far different. The catch is, if you expand to the outer bases, you can build more troops, barricades, turrets, and you get more points. But by expanding, you run the risk of spreading your forces too thin. This means you gotta decide whether or not to settle in one place or try to cover 3 to 4 areas. You can build barricades and even upgrade them. There are bonus rounds where you get free reinforcements. Drop pods will fall onto the map, giving you all sorts of different bonuses. And Terminus Firefight will keep you on your toes because the waves are random. Sometimes it'll be light infantry or heavy vehicles or heavy air, so it's challenging to build the right combination of units in order to combat those forces. There's a lot of risk, reward, and strategy here. All the leaders are available to play, which means you have so much replay value here. Honestly, this is RTS games at their best. This type of mode is just way too fun. So now we're gonna move into basically the only criticism I have with Awakening the Nightmare. Well, if you were hoping this DLC would have a great little mini-story, expand on the Banished, Atriox, and the Flood, you'll be a bit disappointed. I wouldn't recommend buying this just for the story, because if you don't enjoy or care about the gameplay, it's not going to be worth it. The DLC does expand on things, but not to the degree you probably wanted and expected. As was the issue with Halo Wars 2 storytelling, this DLC once again opts for the "let's use most of the dialogue to explain what's going on in the mission" type of writing. It is an RTS game and dialogue needs to tell you what you're supposed to do so you're not confused about that, but the problem is that's mostly of what Awakening the Nightmare is, just explanations of the missions. Basically, the Flood gets released and you kill a proto-grave mine, meet 2 new brutes, Atriox gets upset that they let the Flood out, and that's about it. Nothing too deep or impactful about it. It's like, come on guys, you're bringing the Flood back, the freaking Flood. Do something crazy, experiment with different ideas and crazy new things. Crazy, it's gotta be crazy. Chaotic. Have a mission where Flood are popping up all over the place and you got all these different bases and you gotta defend them all, but there's too many to defend, so you gotta, consolidate your troops and move them all around. More creative, chaotic stuff that really encapsulates what the Flood is about. I mean, throw the flood in between the Banished and the humans and see how both sides react. Do they come to some sort of agreement to fight the threat together, or do they focus most of their forces on the flood but still defend from the opposing side? I mean, there was so much potential areas to be expanded upon here, and I was disappointed that they didn't do that as much. I mean, where was Atriox for the majority of this campaign? What was he doing? Where was Cutter in the Spirit of Fire in all this? The story doesn't really connect to the original Halo Wars 2 campaign. Although one really cool detail is how, at this point, High Charity is like a spooky ghost story. The Banished are out to loot whatever's inside, but tales of the Covenant War, tales of the Flood are regarded as myths. It's pretty fun to hear these new brutes and grunts talk about High Charity after the Covenant fell apart.
No, Covenant stuff! Retro!
They kind of regard it as a joke, as, there's nothing terrible in there that's gonna mutate our body and threaten the galaxy. There's none of that.
Those Covenant lies do not concern me, and that means they do not concern you.
And they're just looking at the remains with disdain and overconfidence, the same way they looked at the elites in Halo 2.
The old stories of the parasite. Nothing but Covenant propaganda, old friend.
The story started off well in the first mission. It really does build up the reveal, but nothing much happens after that. Since it is an expansion, I'd consider this story as something that's going to bridge the gap for future storytelling in the Halo series. Which is good, but again, the story isn't very special in and of itself. For $20, the 5 missions, depending on difficulty, shouldn't take you more than 6 hours to beat, which is decent, but still a bit short. Overall, Awakening the Nightmare is some good-ass DLC that harkens back to when expansions really were expansions. It's a fine effort by 343 and Creative Assembly that offers a ton of fun and new gameplay opportunities for those that enjoyed Halo Wars 2. There's new achievements, Phoenix logs, new lore, leaders, units, maps, and it only really suffers because its story doesn't have enough weight or impact behind it. I am pretty happy about this expansion and all the new content that came with it. I think they did a fantastic job with the cutscenes and gameplay, and as I've been saying, the storytelling really does need to get better. We need to feel more involved, not just because of the nostalgic memories of the Flood from previous games, but also feel involved with the new characters and this new conflict and what we have now. You can't rely too much on nostalgia in order to immerse us in the stories you're trying to create now. So I'd say if you're in it for gameplay, it's 110% worth it. If you're more interested in story, you might consider watching a video summarizing it instead. So, those are my thoughts. But what did you think? That's much more important. Did you enjoy Awakening the Nightmare? Dislike it? Or are you still on the fence about buying it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't, check out my review of Halo Wars 2. And why not subscribe while you're at it? Blah 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 blah. Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Act Man signing it. Oh god! Oh god, get it off! Peace!